Welcome back to the Slay the Spire 2 at Home series, where we usually try to make a homemade version of Slay the Spire 2, one tiny piece at a time, like we add a new card, a new relic, or a new enemy or something. But unfortunately, today is going to be another one of those, technical planning episodes where we have to refactor our spaghetti code due to issues we have in our project, right? So we're not going to have a new enemy or card or relic to show for this at the end of this. Right? But this is important to kind of set us up for success in the future. Yeah, so there's just a lot of problems with the code in this project, right, which we run into, and technical debt has been accruing over time, and I think it's finally time where I need to address this, right? So some background is that, okay, so when I started out learning Godot, right, I didn't know anything about Godot at one point. That's true for everybody at one point or another, right? So I started from a YouTube tutorial series. So that was specifically the Godot Game Lab Slay the Spire tutorial, right? So this is just a YouTube tutorial series that kind of shows people kind of some examples about basic Godot functionality, right? And the scope of that project is much smaller than the project that I'm working on right now, right? Which is trying to, just make Slay the Spire 2 just for fun, right? Like just on the side, not trying to teach people how to make a dough, but just making. So, yeah, but for this YouTube tutorial, right, there was nothing like curl up, there was no tungsten rod, no bully, right? There's no thorns, right, for example, so that would be another thing. So the architecture of this YouTube tutorial, right, which I followed and, used kind of as a basis for an idea of how to set up my own project. So that was, set up in such a way that, to make it simple for the smaller scope, right? So, and also the game rules of that tutorial were different, right? Because in that project, okay, so it was kind of like as if you were in Slay the Spire and then you applied strength, right? And then you did your and then you attacked the enemy and applied vulnerable. But in Slay the Spire, so your strength, weak, and then, flat modifiers are applied first, right? But weak and vulnerable are applied at the same time, right? And we talked about this in more detail in episode 12 of this series where we fixed that issue in our project, right? We added the attack damage calculator. But basically originally the way I had it, like just basing it on that YouTube tutorial, right? So we had this structure called damage effect, right? And so when cards would create damage or when enemies would attack you, right, it would create this damage effect, and then that would just basically abstract the looping through a collection, right? It'd just be like your for each thing, and then it would do the take damage thing based on a set number of damage that was being done, right, to each enemy. And so that was assuming that the strength and weak were applied first, right? And then the vulnerable applied after, right? So that's kind of the background of how we ended up in this situation, right? And so the other thing was like, because I didn't know anything about Godot when I was kind of expanding the scope, right, of the project. So I would kind of use what I learned from that YouTube tutorial and then just kind of do what seemed like the fastest, shortest way to add stuff, to support certain functionality, right? Like, so to implement curl up or for the feed effect or hand of greed or things like that, right? And so I didn't know how signals worked in Godot, right? And so I just didn't know how Godot worked in general. So that was not always done in a way that was good or would make sense, right? Yeah, and some of that I just was just plain wrong also, right? So, for example, okay, so for the curl up case, right? The way I have the curl up is that, okay, so curl up, it needs to apply the curl up, the block after the last hit of an attack, right? And so the way I have that implemented, right, incorrectly, mind you, is that so curl up, it does like a damage take. So I have a signal, right? But basically, let me show that. I get okay. So there is like a damage taken from attack, right? And that this is meant to be like, okay, an attack has finished its last hit, and then we emit this signal, right? But the problem is the way I'm emitting this signal is on the enemy.take damage function, right? And then we're passing in the last hit, like whether or not the attack is the last hit, like from the card, right? So for Twin Strike, for example, so we had this basic multi-damage card, and then we kind of go through the number of hits, right? And then at first we pass in last hit is false, but then we pass, and then last hit is true by default, right? So for the last hit, we'll set that to true. But this is wrong because in the eventual scope of this project, you could have a card like Sword Boomerang, right? Or something like Volley, which does multiple hits that are untargeted, that random, right? So the last hit might not hit the enemy that needs to apply the curl up, right? So let's say you have a Sword Boomerang, you're hitting, a Slay the Spire 1 louse, right? And the first hit hits the louse, and then the second hit hits something else, and the third hit hits something else, right? And then well, the louse is just waiting for the signal, to apply the curl up, right? But it's never going to come because the last hit, hit something else, right? So this is just plain wrong. And so, yeah, and also with this damage effect thing, right? Like, we're not passing in the source of the attack to what's being attacked, right? So how are we ever going to implement something like thorns, right? And then there's bully, right? So bully could hit, well, if it was AoE, it's not, but if it was, right? Like it would hit all the different targets for a different amount of damage based on how much vulnerable they had, right? So this structure becomes very messy, right? But basically, like the main thing is that, well, okay, we're not even using this receiver modifier type anyway, because that stuff is applied at the same time as the modifiers on the source of the attack in our project, right? And then so this enemy.take damage function and then the player.take damage function, they're not actually using the receiver modifier. Where is it? Let me find the take damage. Yeah. So we're not even using this modifier type anymore, right? Because the attack damage calculator calculates that, and we're not using it to calculate how much damage we're taking, rather, right? And then so this is only being used to distinguish between attack and non-attack damage, right? For example, like damage from a relic, right? Or, well, in the case of the enemy, like you could take damage from thorns or something like that, right? But there's a player.take damage that's the equivalent of this. So this is just, it becomes very messy. And then, well, we probably just need to separate the logic out a lot until we know what the final form is going to look like, right? So I have no illusions that I'm going to get this, and it's not going to change in the future, right? But at least it needs to get into a state where I can actually implement some of the features that I want to implement. And then when it's changed next time, I'll have a better idea of, how I need to change it, right? So it's just kind of incremental progress, right? But there's definitely a lot of problems with, the way I have it now, right? So another example of the spaghetti code I have is that, okay, so for the feed and hand of greed, right? So they're, so that they do damage, and then they, if it killed the enemy, some effect happens, right? So I've got a separate structure called damage effect check lethal, right? So this is just really bad, right? This is so stupid. Like, this is complete spaghetti, And so there's a separate function, right, in enemy. So instead of using the same damage taking logic, I've got a take damage check lethal function, right? Like, so it's just, yeah, this is just like a quick and dirty thing that I did to implement feed and hand of greed. And so, no, you don't want to do this, right? Like, why are we having, like, just no, like, so, yeah, that needs to change, right? We need to get rid of this spaghetti code and kind of have some a more reasonable way of, implementing this. And the same thing for player.take damage and return unblock. Like, really? Like, no. Like, we have these functions that all do the same thing, right? And so this player.take damage and return unblocked function, that was what I used for the shelled parasite suck action, right? From the original Slay the Spire. Because in the original Slay the Spire, there's an enemy called shelled parasite that when it attacked you, like for a certain attack, how much damage it dealt that you didn't block, it would heal for that much, right? So, and so we were calling damage, like we were calling this execute and return unblock. Like this is so bad, right? Instead of having a way where we just have the same take damage function for everything, right? That just emits different signals or has like a compound return type or what, right? So yeah, like that we need to get rid of the spaghetti code, like take damage and return unblocked, right? We need to get rid of like take damage, check lethal. This is just bad, right? This is stupid. Um, yeah, and then so like I mentioned before, the curl up valuable case is just completely broken, right? Because well, what if we add sword boomerang? That's not gonna work. The more spaghetti code is that okay? So for the thievery, right? I had a thief action, right? So thief attack, right? And so that stole the gold like from original Slay the Spire thief instead of having the status effect actually implement that, right? So it was just tied to the specific attack, and the status effect didn't actually do anything. So some more spaghetti code. So the way this really needs to be implemented, right, is that well, when the thing that the status is attached to attacks something, it steals the gold, right? Not like for this particular attack. So that way we could put this status on other things, like for example, when we get around to adding the gremlin merc and Slay the Spire 2, right? So that was another thing. Oh, and we have more spaghetti code for like the Guardian and then the original Slay the Spire Lagavulin, right? So in the enemy class, right, I have a couple of signals. One of them's like enemy damage taken, and then there's enemy damage taken with amount. And so I was using enemy damage taken with amount for the Guardian's mode shift, because in the original Slay the Spire, there was like this Guardian boss in Act 1, and then in offensive mode, when it took damage, right, like it would decrement the how many stacks that it had of something called mode shift, and then when you depleted its stacks, it would change into defensive mode, right? So yeah, that's what that was for. And then I had this enemy damage taken thing, which I was using for the Lagavulin to wake up. So this is something that, okay, we don't care how much damage we took, like as long as it's non-zero, right? Like, and then it would wake up. But why is this two separate signals, right? Like, it didn't need to. It doesn't have to be this way, right? Like this is just bloated and not very good, right? Spaghetti code. So let me show you that also. So we have scenes enemy Lagavulin. Let me find it. So here, yeah. So I have this thing where, let's see, when we, where is it? Enemy damage taken, not connect, wake up, right? And then so, yeah, and then the mode shift, right? So let me open that up. So the Guardian's mode shift, it would use this separate thing where damage taken with amount, and then it would have this parameter, right? But the way it really should be, right, is that we only have one signal that has the amount, and then the Lagavulin can just ignore the amount of damage. So we add the parameter, right, and then we just ignore that, so we just have one signal that's when you're taking damage, and some things are going to care about the damage, the amount of damage, some things aren't, right? So that's another thing. And yeah, like we have to refactor just to be able to support thorns, right? So we don't lose the source of the damage in this damage effect class, which isn't really serving a purpose anymore, right? Because we refactored it for our project, and if we wanted to keep this, right, we could have this do the attack damage calculator calls maybe, right? But then we'd have to have special handling for the bullet case, and this isn't really like doing anything right now that we the receiver modifier type, the function of that is different, right? And then and abstracting, like looping through our collection, is not that valuable. It's not that hard to do that just from each card, right? Yeah, so I'm thinking that in the cards and then the enemy attacks, we just do direct calls to the take damage function of the target, right? And not have this intermediate class like in between that doesn't really add any value the way I've got things set up, right? And part of that is just a function of, well, okay, so we apply the multiplicative modifiers of the source of the attack and then the target of the attack at the same time, right? And instead of having this damage effect thing. And also, yeah, just, well, different targets could take different amount of damage before vulnerable, right? Like, I mean, bully is not AOE in Slay the Spire 2, but if there was something like that, which was, right, then we want to have that. And so there's a lot of cases of when, okay, well, so since I'm going to refactor it anyway, so I spent some time thinking about how I want to implement all the, well, just a lot of the cases I could think of off the top of my head for, status effects or attack damage or whatever, right? So Reaper form, so when you deal attack damage to an enemy, it applies the Doom status, right? The beating remnant, like, so when you have this relic, you can only take this much damage a turn. So there's a skulking colony, which is sort of like the enemy version of the beating remnant, except it does apply the damage preview to the card text, right? Um, so there's the exoskeleton case, which is, the hit when you attack something, it's capped at 9 damage. It's that enemy in Act 2, right? In the Slay the Spire 2. And then there's tungsten rod, right? So this applies to not attack damage and non-attack damage, right? And so that needs to be considered, right? And then also tungsten rod isn't previewed when an enemy attacks you, right? Like, so if it's attacking you for 1/5, it'll still show 1/5 over the enemy's head, right? But when it attacks you, it's not actually going to do any damage. So there's a wall-up case, right? So from the original Slay the Spire, there was a watcher card called wall-up, right? And then it's kind of like the player version of the Shelled Parasite, right? Where you attack something and then the amount of unblocked damage, something happens with that, right? And for wall-up, for the watcher, you gain block, right? So Wallop isn't in Slay the Spire 2, but who knows? Some effects similar like to that could be added in Slay the Spire 2 at some point, right? Where we're attacking something and we need to do something with the return value. There's the echoing slash case where, okay, so if you kill an enemy, whether or not it was fatal, right? So this works on a minion. That's a little bit different from the Feed and Hand of Greed case, right? So something needs to happen, like the card needs to play again, right? There's also the Sleight of Flesh case where, okay, so when you apply a status to the enemy, it does non-attack damage or something, right? And then we've got the Haunt case, which is lose health, so this goes through block, right? When you have Haunt applied and play a soul, the enemy loses health, and that's not affected by the block, right? We've got the Slippery case, which is the Inklets or the, what was it, Vantum in Act 1 Overgrowth, where when you attack something, it's previewed and the damage is set to 1 for the next hit, right? Well, in the case of the Vantum, it's however many stacks it has left of the Slippery, right? But basically, yeah, non-zero damage gets set to 1, right? And this applies to non-attack damage also. So there's just a lot of cases that we need to worry about, right? We've got the Bulldog, which needs to get stunned when it attacks, right? So, okay, so one thing, to get rid of the stupid stuff like execute and return unblocked, right? And also to get rid of take damage, check lethal, is that for a take damage, right? Well, there's going to be take attack damage, right? But it's going to have a custom return type, right? And then this custom return type will be able to show you how much damage was dealt, whether something was lethal, right? So this is for non-minions, right? You killed a non-minion. If something was killed, right? Well, that's anything. Well, even if it was a minion that was killed, right? For echoing slash. And then one advantage of having a custom return type is that, well, when we add or remove stuff from the custom return type, we don't have to refactor the function signature, right? So that's an extra perk of that. But basically, we need to have this so that we don't have, well, at least that's the way I thought of to do it, to get rid of this spaghetti code, right? Where we have take damage, check lethal, and then, take damage, return on block. This is just very bad spaghetti code, which we need to get rid of, right? So, and then, yeah, I'm thinking we get rid of the modifier type in here, because this isn't really relevant, right? In here, in the, because we're not actually using that to calculate how much damage is here. That's done by the damage calculator. And then there's just going to be a separate function for take damage and take non-attack damage and take attack damage, right? Sort of like how there already is in the player for the take damage, or no, for the take damage, so this is the non-attack and attack damage right now. But there's also the lose health, which isn't affected by block, right? So I think, yeah, this right here, right? And then, so yeah, enemies will need to have this too, because they can lose health from Haunt, right? And I'm sure there's other things that make enemies lose health that go through their block also, right? Let's see. So, wait, what was this note I put here? I don't know what this means here. I don't even remember what I was doing with my own note. But yeah, okay, so we've got, yeah. So yeah, I just wrote down a lot of what my thoughts, right? So that okay, so thorns is non-attack damage, health loss from cards is health loss, right? So we're going to separate health loss and non-attack damage because basically, like, I think stuff at this stage of the project needs to be separated as much as possible. Like, so there's some stuff which is going to be separated, which might not need to be separated in the future. So for example, the thief attack where that steals gold, and then the thorns you do, like, you know, says keep them separate so that we have more control over the order, right? So I think that the thief stealing gold happens before the thorns deal damage, which usually doesn't matter. But what if you have an ectoplasm, right? I think it still steals gold even if the thorns, you know, kills it, right? So, and we don't want to have something where we have to think about, oh, which one of these things connects to the signal first, right? So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm thinking, okay, we just separate out the functionality as much as possible for now until we're really sure we can collapse stuff, right? So, like, so for one thing that, you know, so I'm thinking that for the bullbug stunning, right? So we have a separate signal for that, right? Just keep it separate for now, and probably we won't need this, right? Probably this can just be something else, right? Or no, oh, this wasn't the one that I was thinking could collapse. Uh, but yeah, player dot attack damage dealt to, right? Like maybe that doesn't need to be separated from like enemy like attacked player, but you know, for now, I think you know which when I'm not sure of in great detail of what the order of operations is, right, and what the scope is eventually going to be, I'm thinking I just separate stuff out as much as possible to just yeah every little thing yeah to be kind of but basically not like this where we run into problems and then you know we you know have do not treat non-attack damage and attack damage to the same function and things just get very complicated, right? So yeah, so I mean we just have more code but it's simpler, I guess, if that makes any sense. Yeah, and then we try to get rid of the damage. Okay, so I've got a list of stuff, so we're going to get rid of the damage effect, right? And then so everything that's currently using the damage effect needs to be refactored to just do the direct calls into the new functions we need to, you know, do for the take attack damage or take non-attack damage, right? And then so I'm not going to refactor all of that in the video, in this video, right? But, you know, I'll probably do a couple of them and, you know, do the rest after I'm done recording. And then, yeah, we need to refactor the Hand of Greed and Feed to get rid of this, you know, janky spaghetti code. And then we you know, need to get rid of this for the, you know, shelled parasite, right? Well, I mean, some of this stuff I'm not using anymore because I switched it to the Slay the Spire 2, you know, but it might still be good to have around, right, in case we want to play around with those things or, well, also just because a lot of stuff can be reused for Slay the Spire 2 stuff when we get around to it. Right? It's like, for example, Lagavulin Matriarch wakes up right when it takes damage, just like the original Slay the Spire Lagavulin did. And there's also that big bug in in Act 2, which, you know, wakes up when it takes damage, but, you know, it's sleeping at first. It comes, you know, with a couple of bull bugs or something. So yeah, that'll be functionality that we can repurpose, but, you know, we probably want to refactor that stuff. Okay, and then yeah, so I'm just thinking that yeah, we get rid of yeah. So let's see. Yeah, but basically just refactor stuff. Okay, so but yeah, so I guess I'll just get started with actually. So I think saying it out loud it still makes sense to me, right? So I don't need to stop myself and say, oh no, I don't do this after all. So I think I think it still makes sense. So I think I just start doing this stuff, right? So just go down the list of everything I felt like needs to change and just start adding that stuff. Okay, so there's going to be an enemy that take attack damage, right? Oh, okay, so let's create the attack result first, I guess. This will be our custom return value. So where did I write that down somewhere? Hold on. Why is that not next to there? Oh, I put it here. Hmm. Yeah, okay, so I just put some more notes in between. That's fine. this can stay up here. Okay, so I'll make a return type, right? So this will be in custom resources. I'll just say this is a script. This inherits from ref counted, I guess. Does it inherit from ref counted? I guess it does, right? Yeah, it's not a resource, right? Yeah, I think it's ref counted. Okay, so this can be called attack result. Okay, and then an attack result will have damage dealt, right? And that'll be an integer. We'll default it to 0, I guess. And then we have was fatal, right? Bool equals false. That was killed equals false, right? So this will be for the feed hand of greed case, right? This is for the echoing flash case. So we works on minions, right? And then let's not work on. And then this is like kind of our wall up case, right? Or also the shelled parasite, right? Or something needs to happen too with the return fail. So this is attack result. Okay, so whoops. Get rid of this line. Oh, it just adds it up by itself. Okay, that's fine. Alright, so we will need so do we want to do player or enemy first? I guess player .take damage is a higher priority if I want to do the thorns next episode next, right? So yeah, maybe this order isn't the order I should actually add the stuff. Well, I mean, I'm gonna have to do it anyway, so I'll just follow this, you know, order that's in the notes I took. Okay, so enemy. Alright, so enemy will have a take attack damage function, right? And then this will return an attack result. And so that'll be kind of, yeah, split off from this, you know, original take damage function we had before the refactor. So this will be take attack damage, and then source will be a card, modify damage, and it returns attack result, right? And then, okay, so let's put the stub in first. I can't find attack result. What? Didn't I just... Oh, I need to capitalize. Freaking... Okay. Yeah, I need to return an attack result. Okay, so yeah, for the stub. Okay, so we'll say var return value attack result equals attack result dot new, right? And then we'll return value. That can be our stub. Okay, so we have that in place, right? Alright, so what needs to happen in take attack damage? So I guess basically we're going to have to emit a lot of the signals that we did before, right? So, okay, so first of all, if we're being attacked and we're already dead, then we return, right? Oh, well, we have to return an attack result. Okay, so do we just return null here? So I guess the caller will have to deal with that, right? If it attacks, if something messed up somewhere, and then we attack something that was already dead. All right, so yeah, so let's just copy some of this stuff, I guess, right? And then just from our current functionality, we'll just copy this stuff in there. We'll just change it as we need to. So okay, so here we say, so we're not keeping track of, I mean, we're not doing this last hit thing, right? So it's up to the caller, right, to keep track of how much damage a card did, not up to this function take attack damage. So we don't need this anymore. And then so maybe we, in the return value, okay, so let's, and then so this is modified damage. Here is the output of attack damage calculator, right? So here, I guess instead of having a local variable, right, we, oh no, we do use a local variable from this for this stuff. Okay, but one of the things we do with this variable, we'll say return value dot damage dealt equals health damage taken, right? So I should put a comment here, though. This is, oh, so do we need to have a separate value for unblocked damage and then the total damage dealt? Maybe we should. That might be useful, right? Yeah, because this needs to be unblocked damage dealt, right? For the wall up and shelled parasite case. Is there ever a case where we need to care about the damage dealt, like counting the block damage that was blocked? Well, for now, maybe not, right? So okay, so let's just, so this will be unblocked. Yeah, something like that, right? So here, because this function returns the amount that was not blocked. Okay. Alright, so we're not doing this thing, right? So here, this take attack damage, the modifier type will always be the, you know, the attack damage, right? So here we don't have to do a check. We just say, so here we don't check, right? And then we just say, we emit that, right? And also, are we changing that signal at all? So we're adding the source to that signal, right? Yeah, so this is, so we're adding the source in case that, okay, so let's say the enemy has the Sikkim debuff. So you played Sikkim, right? And you know, you've got Asti out. And so that way, when on subsequent attacks, when the status effect can connect to this signal, and then it know, okay, if we got attacked by Asti again, we need to do something, right? We need to summon more. That's what we're doing with that, right? So I think that's what I said I was doing there. Yeah, okay, so that's what I was doing with that. So yeah, so we need to emit that with the source, right? And then, so this signal will have to change to add the source, right? So, okay, so, and then the things that are currently using this can just ignore the source, right? If it doesn't care, like the plated armor or the mad gremlin angry or whatever. So we'll have to refactor that, right? Those things, right? But, so this will be like what this enemy was hit by, like which card, right? So yeah, we have to go refactor all that stuff too, but you know, that'll be. So for example, I'll just show you how I'm gonna do that for. So for example, in plated armor, right, we're gonna need to add the source, right? So this will be. Oh, so plated armor in the original Slay the Spire could be on both enemies or players. Oh, okay, but if it's an enemy, we're connecting it to. So the signatures are a bit different, right? Okay, so yeah, we'd have to refactor that to, you know, account for that too. Mm, but for example, right, so this will be like proc enemy plated armor, right? And then we don't actually need this, right? Like, yeah, this is due to some old implementation I did when, you know, I thought I might need this. So, but basically, when we have plated armor from the original Slay the Spire on the enemy, I mean, this isn't in Slay the Spire 2, but you know, what if it was? So we'd have like and then for plated armor, we don't care what we were hit by, like which card we were hit by, just which just that we were hit, right? So that would be an example of like the simple refactor, what we would do for that, right? What is this warning we're getting? Oh yeah, I thought I did that, but yeah, we don't care. Okay. So yeah, but yeah, so you see what, you know, we're gonna have to do, like, and most of that can be done like after this video. I don't need to do it all on but that's kind of, yeah. All right, so back to our take attack damage, right? But we're going to emit the sort like as a parameter the source of the, I mean, so the card that attacked this enemy, right? Just in case, you know, for the second case, right? Okay, so we have that in there. What else do we need to do? Okay, so we're not going to have this last hit thing, right? So the way we're going to implement curl up and malleable, right, is that when those things take damage, right? So when they'll connect to this signal, um, they'll connect to this enemy damage taken from attack hit signal, and they'll just wait for the next card played, because the next card played, right? So that's will be the card that caused the damage, right? To be hit. I mean, that caused the thing with curl up to take this attack damage, right? Um, so I think that'll always be the case. So we're not going to have this spaghetti code with the last hit and then this enemy damage take, which won't even work for the sword boomerang case like we did before, right? Okay, so then we have enemy damage taken dot emit. So that'll be so this is something that will be used for things that don't care if it's an attack or if it's just or non-attack damage, right? So there, yeah. So let's see. Do I need to add anything to that? Oh yeah. So I think I was saying I was going to add the amount, right? So that'll be to support the case like the Guardian mode shift. And then the things that don't need the amount can just ignore that, right? Yeah, so, okay, so we find our enemy damage. So we're going to have to add the amount, right? And then so this will be, add the amount to that, right? So in the signal, we need to say, so yeah, let's get rid of this. Whoops. Okay, so we're getting rid of this, right? So, uh, deprecated. This implementation of curl up will not work due to sword boomerang volley case, right? Okay, so, and then this will be deprecated right here. Deprecated : collapsed into enemy damage taken. Okay, so we'll have a note there, and then so this will, yeah, so this enemy damage taken will have the amount int, and this will be both for the, you know, Lagavulin waking up case, the Guardian mode shift case, right? And then so when we in the Lagavulin waking up, right? So we'll have the damage amount right here, right? So, but you can see how when we refactor signals, we're going to have to do that. And then the Lagavulin just doesn't care about how much damage it takes when it wake up, right? It just wakes up. All right. Well, if it wakes up, like maybe it could die also, right? But all right. So let's see. And then the Guardian, right? So for the mode shift thing, right? We refactor that also. I can probably do that real quick. So it's not going to be enemy damage taken with the mount, right? This will just be enemy damage taken. I mean, maybe I should even like leave the original code in there. Just comment it. I mean, it gets pretty messy doing it that way, but okay, but yeah. Just to show that what changed, right? Be something like that. Yeah. And then in Lagavulin, maybe I just put the original there also, like just to keep in case like stuff doesn't work out. Maybe I should do that for the plated armor. Well, the plated armor, I left the original function there, so that's fine. And I haven't even refactored the one for the player yet, right? Because, yeah, that's a different signal. Okay, so that's fine, right? So, okay, so back to enemy.take attack damage, right? So we... Oh yeah, this signal's gone, right? So yeah, we just get rid of this. And then we do this, right? Why is this complaining? Oh, because there's nothing under here now. Okay, so we don't need this anymore. Okay. Alright, so, but yeah, back to our take attack damage function. So we have this signal going out here too, right? What else? Okay, so we also need to die, right? If we took too much damage, like this enemy. So that can go here. And then we also need to do that stuff with, you know, that the spaghetti code was taking care of, right? This take damage, check lethal. So, okay, so let me first fix this thing also. No, we still need that. Yeah, I mean, we're going to refactor, but I'm just refactoring stuff in place. So until I've refactored it, so this thing will still be there, I guess. Okay, so we're doing this thing, right? The feed hand of Greek case. So here, so this will be part of the return value, right? So return value dot was fatal equals true. And then return value was killed equals true, right? Okay, so we've populated our, so we fulfilled our contract here for the attack result, right? The enemy dot take damage, attack damage function. Yeah, so that should be that, right? Okay, that was one thing in our very long list of things we need to change. So that was this, right? Okay, so let's have enemy.take non-attack damage. Is that okay? So this will be. So do we want non-attack damage to be above? Yeah, below, I guess is fine. Okay, so we have flunk take non-attack damage, right? And then this, the signature, okay, so we don't care about the source, right? And we just have the modified damage. Well, it's not modified, it's just the amount of damage, right? Like, well, there might be a non... Well, for now, I mean, it doesn't really matter. We'll just call it damage for now. We can always change it later. Yeah, so, yeah, we do need this thing there, though. Otherwise, how do we know how much damage we're taking, right? And then, so this is more kind of what this is right here, right? This. So, take non-attack damage will be basically take damage, but if the modifier was, you know, the non-attack damage stuff, right? Okay, so we'll just have that, right? And this doesn't need to have the return value for the attack result. That's attack specific, right? Okay, so we'll have, yeah, just kind of the same stuff, right? So we'll split it up so it's easier to, you know, add more functionality, like, you know, split up how we handle tungsten rod and stuff like that in the future. Okay, so we'll still have the, because, okay, and this still, block still applies to stuff like, to non-attack damage, like e.g. mercury, hourglass, stone, calendar, letter, opener, right? So if you're hitting enemies that have block with those things, like, it does get reduced by block, so we still do this. Oh, there's not going to be a return value. We're not returning anything. Yeah, just... Okay, and then we still do that stuff, right? Well, we don't need to care about if, you know, was fatal or was kill, right? So we just have... We don't take care about this attack thing, right? Yeah, just like that, right? What is this complaining about? Oh. We're not using this anywhere. Yeah, because that's just this. Okay. Yeah. And then, so an example of what needs to be refactored here, right, is that, let's say, mercury hourglass, right? So that's not going to be, so we're getting rid of this damage effect, you know, stuff, right? So, okay, so this will be, let me put the type here to make things more clear. So we're not doing damage effect, right? We're going to just say direct calls. So for enemy, well, this will be an array of enemies. Like, do we want to do an explicit cast? I mean, we can just for, okay, so we'll just save our, just to make things clear, I guess. So that's how we, you know, would do refactor mercury hourglass, right? What's going on here? Oh, okay. So, but we'll have to do the same thing for, you know, stone calendar, letter opener, right? But, you know, that can be done on my own, like not in this video, right? But the important thing is like, okay, so we're having this take non-attack damage function here, right? All right, so what do we need? So here I already did this, right? So we need, no, I already collapsed this into here. We did that. So we got rid of this, right? We already got rid of that. Okay, so enemy damage taken from attack hit. So we did this too, right? Yeah. And then, all right, so we also need this, right? So for this is for thorns. All right, so that's new. I need to add that. Okay, so this will be, maybe I should put the things that are not deprecated like together more. And then this can be used for like the curl up malleable case. But I'm sure there's a lot of other cases where we're doing. I mean, this is also for plated armor, right? Original Slay the Spire plated armor. There's a lot of things that happen when that trigger on taking attack damage, right? Let me just. Oh yeah, the flying status from birds, right? And then this is also the same thing for like the thieving hopper, right? But yeah, there's a lot of things, right? So okay, but yeah, back to what I was doing. So there's going to be yeah, there's going to be an enemy.was attack signal, right? Okay. And this is the thorns case, because thorns does not care if any damage was dealt. It only cares that it was attacked, right? And this enemy damage from attack hit, this is non-zero, you know. So this is like non-zero attack damage was, you know, taken, right? And then thorns, we only care about if we were attacked, and you know. So yeah, and I'm having a separate signal just to keep things separate, like I was saying before, instead of just making it this emit with 0 also, right? Like with the amount. Yeah, right now I'm not even putting the amount on here because you know, we don't care about that. Because for the Reaper case, I'm going to have a separate signal for that, I guess. Like that'll be like player dot attack damage dealt to. Okay, so. Yeah. And then this can be, oh, where would we emit this also? That would be something to think about also. Like, do we just emit this in the card, or? I guess in the... No, we don't want to do that in each card, do we? Do we do that in enemy that take attack damage? So it's in one place. Or would it be better just to have... Does that actually need to be... Okay, well first let me hook up the signal was attacked, right? this can be like. Yeah, so for the Reaper form case, could this just be collapsed with the enemy damage taken? No, because this is not just attack damage, though. This is also non-attack damage. And this thing, I'm assuming Reaper form affects Osti attacks too, right? But when an enemy takes damage from an attack hit, that's always from the player or Osti, right? Do we ever care if that... Like, do we really need to have a separate signal for this, I guess, is... Do we need this? Maybe just use... No, but... Okay, so... This is... Okay, this enemy damage taken from attack hit is in local scope. So if we have a Reaper form status on the player, that needs to be... That needs to get something from the global event, but so I guess we do need the... Okay, at least the way we have it set up. That could be something that, you know, we reconsider in the future. Okay, so do we actually need this? Like, maybe could consider just moving enemy.take attack damage. What was the signal called? Enemy damage taken from attack hit, I guess. Yeah. Maybe could just consider there's 2. Okay, moving that to global event bus. But for now, I guess we can do, yeah, player dot attack damage del 2 here. So that can be something to the in the global event. But okay, so all right, so let's add a signal to. So that's player dot attack damage or player attack damage del 2. Oh, but this is a local. Right now, I have it being a local signal for the player though. Oh yeah, but I was planning to store the player node in a global static variable, which I haven't done yet. Okay, so... Yeah, because we don't want to check the return value in every card. We just want to do it in enemy.take attack damage. So we need the player node to be in global static variable, right? That'll be battle.player node. And then there'll be a local signal in the player, right? To emit the local signal, the player, like for Reaper and Venom to connect to, right? Okay, so let's have that then. Okay, so we'll have, okay. This will be a static variable here, right? Static var player node equals null. And I'm assuming there's never going to be more than one battle going on at once. And then here, so we'll, at the start of the battle, we'll say player node equals player, right? Yeah. And then so in enemy.take damage. So we'll say battle dot player node dot. Oh, I need to add the signal. Attack damage dealt 2. Okay, so in the player, so there'll be this signal. So right now we don't even have local signals in player because we've been handling everything in the global event bus, which is kind of messy, but it was kind of good for starting out learning Godot. Okay, so where do I put my signals in enemy? So I put them. I just put them at the top, I guess. Okay, so we'll do that for player also for local. So signal, attack damage dealt 2, enemy damage dealt. And this won't be emitted in the player node. It'll be like when the emitted in the enemy.take damage function, right? So yeah. And then this is unblocked damage dealt, right? So there's because Reaper form. So does that work differently than? Now we've got. No, this is a circular dependency. Do we just want to say node then to not have a circular dependency? First, let me check Reaper form. Like, I mean, to avoid the circular dependency, I could also just put it in the global event bus. So let me see, Reaper form. Does it say? No, the enemy's block does not reduce the amount of doom applied. Ooh. Okay, I need to rethink this. Because in Venom, that only works for unblocked damage, right? And it doesn't care about the amount of damage. Yeah, okay. Shoot. So Reaper, okay. Does this need to be in the global event bus to... I mean, it doesn't have to be. We could just say node, right? But... just to kind of not have the compile time dependency. So, but yeah, this is. So we need to handle that separately though, right? Because the Venom only works on the. So apparently we do. I'm creating too many circular dependencies here, right? So maybe it's not a good idea to have this battle.player node thing. this is meant to be player also, right? But so enemy needs to not have a compile time dependency on battle is what I'm seeing here. So maybe we just put that in the global event bus just to make things easier for now. So this will be player attack damage. Bus to avoid circular dependencies, right? So we want a signal that's emitted only when unblocked damage is dealt, and we need a signal that's emitted when just when any attack is. Well, no. So the Reaper form, the unblocked damage has to be greater than 0, right? Like, I mean, either way, if it's 0, it could also just apply the thing, but. I mean, yeah, maybe we just do that for now. Okay. Yeah, this is only going to work for things which are able to access the battle, right? Like, that might not be very many things. Because, yeah, I need to think about our dependency structure then. So what was I planning to do with this battle.player node? For the thorns case, so is the status going to be able to access that, right? It might not be able to. Yeah, I just need to think more about the dependency structure. But I mean that I don't need to worry about that for now, right? I mean there's any number of ways to put that thing in some easily accessible location. It doesn't have to be in battle. I could put that somewhere else too. Alright, so yeah, we can worry about that later. Yeah, but this thing might not be a good idea to put it in battle. It needs to be somewhere where maybe just put it in global. Yeah, we could put it in global. Because that's where we've been putting all of our. Okay, let's try doing it that way. Alright, so let's not have this here, right? So we have. A global, this class, like, basically it's just the thing that doesn't. Okay, so then we have that there, and then battle we say global.player node equals player, right? And then in the, so we can still do the local signal thing, right, for this attack damage L2. But we need to separate the reperform and venom case. Okay, so let me see. So, but basically instead of, yeah. Yeah. So instead of battle.player node, we have global.player node. Just for ease of access. Okay. And then here in the local scope in the player, we need to separate out the reperform and the envenom case, right? So, okay, so we'll have unblocked damage dealt to. So can we call it enemy now? Like, does that resolve the circular dependency? Like, maybe we don't need to. Because now that enemy no longer has the reference to battle. Maybe we can do that now. Let's put this here. And then here we don't care about the amount of damage, right? Like, but what if there's cases where we do care in the future? Do we want to leave that open? Like, so are there cases where we care about how much unblocked damage we did to something? There is for the wallop, but that's just using the return type. That's not an observer pattern thing. So are there statuses where we care about the unblocked damage? We can deal with that later, I guess, if we end up needing that. Consider whether or not this needs damage dealt parameter, right? For anything else. Okay, and then so this is reperform case, right? This is before the attack is blocked. So this is, I don't know, well, let's call it pre-block damage, pre-block attack damage. Like that. Okay, so an enemy.take damage, take attack damage rather, so we say global.player node dot pre-block attack damage to dot emit self modified damage, right? Okay. And then for the envenom case, we say goal.player node dot unblocked damage dealt to self, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's, so this is Reaper. And this is envenom case. And this one's a lot of things, right? This is like, all right. Okay, so we did that, right? Okay, where were we? Okay, so this is enemy dot was attacked, right? So this is, okay, so we did this. So now we also need the signal for when we attack the player, right? That's for like the thievery case. So this should be emitted from the player take damage function, right? Now hopefully that doesn't result in another circular dependency. I mean, Godot is 4 supposed to be a little bit better about supporting like basic stuff like that, but you know, sometimes you never know. But we can always dereference one of them if we need to. But yeah, let's just add that there. Okay, so we'll just have a signal. So signal. So this will be like attacked player, right? Let's just keep things in alphabetical order. Thievery case, right? Okay. And then, okay, so this is the bullbug stun case. And this will also be emitted in the player.take attack damage function, right? And okay, so these signals will be emitted in the receiver function, right? Yeah, so that might be something I need to rethink is like, well, do we really want to have these signals like emitted by the things, you know? Or do we just want to like move stuff to the global event bus, right? Like, and just have the enemy. Yeah, that's probably something that would make sense, right? It's and just put the parameter like of which enemy here. That might be cleaner. I'm not sure. Like which way is doing. I never worked on a game before. Like how do people who make games usually do this kind of thing? But yeah, this can be a to do, I guess. Like we can consider that in the future if we feel like we really need to do that. All right, so enemy don't lose health. Okay, so this will be we just put a stub for now, right? That'll just be like a copy of player don't lose health. Yeah. So this will just be something that, you know, well. Okay, so we'll just put that as a damage function. And then so instead of player died, we do like events dot enemy dot die. Okay, so this isn't used for now, right? Yeah. Okay, so now we do the same thing for the player stuff, right? So that's basically the other side of things. Yeah, and so we decided not to go this. We have the enemy dot attack, but yeah, this might be something that we move to global scope eventually, if you know, maybe that makes sense. Yeah, maybe this stuff in general is stuff that just you know, kind of. Yeah, I don't know how people who make games generally do this kind of thing. All right, so let's just start doing this. Okay, so we need a player.take attack damage function, right? Just like the enemy version. And then, yeah, so, well, okay, so, well, let me reorder this. Attack damage is more important here. Alright, so, yeah. So we're not gonna, use this, right? So we need to, we're gonna have to refactor shell parasite suck attack, right? That's gonna go away. So okay, so this will be funk take attack damage, right? And then the thing we were saying the signature was going to be. Okay, so I guess the thing is, like, can we make this source enemy without creating some sort of circular dependency, right? And then just have like something like that, right? And then, okay, so a lot of that will be the same as the enemy. We'll just be emitting different signals, right? A lot fewer signals, I guess. What cannot? So, oh yeah, that is creating a circular reference then. What's the best way to do this then? So maybe I just don't have the explicit references. I'll just say node then. At least on one end. And maybe this needs to be just, maybe this also needs to be like node and not. Yeah, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I just need to make it a node. Well, first let me make this compile and then fix the player thing. So then maybe that'll fix that actually. So, okay, so if I put the return value in, I guess just as a stub, right? Alright, so if I... Okay, so that fixes this, right? And then I'll have to put the actual functionality in, right? But, yeah. But for now, okay, does that make our thing compile here? It does. Okay, so what if I change this to enemy now? Does that create a circular reference, or am I still good? So maybe the problem is just that I just didn't have a return value. Okay. All right. So okay, let's try this for now, and if it doesn't work, I'll just change that back. All right. So what are we doing here in take attack damage? So this is kind of the same thing that we do in the enemy, but just simpler, and then we have. Oh, we haven't emitted this signal here. Do we need to emit this signal here? Why weren't we? Huh. Why was I not emitting the player died signal here? Was I doing it here? Oh yeah, I was. Okay. So this is kind of duplicated also. I just didn't like sufficiently test this. Probably this probably isn't needed. Okay. I mean, this probably doesn't need to be global.player character stats because that's just the the stats here, right? Like, yeah. Okay, so but yeah, let me copy this block, I guess, and then okay, so take attack damage. Well, no, this needs to be after the return value is declared. All right, so here don't need this. All right, so we don't need this witch modifier, right? So we just maybe we should make this more consistent too, because in the enemy damage taken after block is called health damage taken. I don't know. I kind of like damage taken after block better. We'll rename the other one. Okay, so this will be this, right? Anything else? Okay. Maybe this should be called damage taken after block also, or no, this is fine, because this is kind of something that an attack will check how much damage it does. Yeah. Okay, so here we. All right, so let's go back to this. So here, this doesn't need to be global.player character stat. This can just be stats, right? Because that's this thing. Because we already set stats to global.player character stats right here, like what we should have been. All right, so. And then we need to take care of the signals we're going to emit, right? Okay, so let me go down the list of what. Well, let me put this stub in here. Take non-attack damage. All right, so. And then we don't care about the source, right? Like. So this will be like if we get hit by enemy thorns or something, like. And then, so this will need the damage amount. What do we call it for the enemy version? Damage. Okay, so we have that, right? And then this will just, yeah, just. So it can also be blocked. So it's not from attack. We don't need to emit that, right? We just need to. So we don't need to emit this signal. Wait, what? Did I actually? Oh no, I actually have to do the take damage though. Okay, like that. Okay. And this is like. All right. But now I'll need to add some signals to kind of support the functionality that we're going to need, right? So, okay. Then we can worry about the tungsten rod later, but. So that can be like a to-do, right? Then. Alright, so let's see. So we already have this, right? So getting rid of this. Okay, so we need a player was attacked by for the thorns case, right? Okay, so this can be the thorns case. And then so when we're attacked, where do we put that for the enemy one? Just here. Okay, it doesn't really matter, I don't think, but no. Maybe we don't want to call this source. Just call it enemy. Oh. No, source because, yeah, just to... Yeah, that's fine, because the class name is enemy, right? Okay. So this is for... Alright, so we have that. Player attack damage delta. So we did this, right? This was already... Yeah. So no, we're not putting it in the global event bus. Okay. Okay, and then so we have to emit the enemy dot had attack fully blocked, right, for the bullbug case. Do we need to do this attacked player thing for the thievery case? Yeah, right. Okay, so the order of that is that... So we do the thievery before the thorns, right? So source dot emit... No, dot attacked player dot emit, right? So that's this. And then this is the bullbug case. Okay, so that's only emitted if the attack was fully blocked, right? So else source dot had attack fully blocked dot emit, right? So this is the bullbug stun case, right? What am I even doing with this signal? Oh, painful stat. That's no, yeah, that's the thing that has to be refactored, because the way I have it right now is that the painful stabs, it assumes that that's the only enemy, right? So we don't keep track of which enemy damaged the player for that. Okay, what do I need to do with that? Okay, the painful stabs case and the scrolls case, right? So okay, so we so player damage taken from attack needs to emit the source of the attack. And this is like from attack hit, not a whole attack, right? Well, it's the hit is implicit. Maybe we could rename it. Right now, it doesn't have the underscore hit at the end, right? Oh, right now it's even in the global event bus. Yeah. Should that really be there? I mean, maybe we could consider moving that to... Having it in the global event bus would make it easier for the enemy's painful status, stab status, or similar status like the scrolls to connect to it, though, right? Maybe it's fine. So this isn't actually needed for thorns. This is, yeah, thorns doesn't care about if we actually take damage. All right, so we attack. Yeah, so did I write down? Okay, so I put it here, right? Yeah. Okay, so we'll do that. So yeah, I just put the notes in a weird place. Okay, so let's just leave it in the global event bus for now. So this will, be, and this does. So this is like we don't care how much damage was taken, only that we take the damage, right? So if there's something that ends up caring about the amount of damage, then maybe we need to add that later. But for now, I can't think of any time that matters, right? Is there a case where that matters? Where if the enemy damages you and a status on the enemy or something cares about how much damage it dealt to you. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe we can add it later if we run into that. But for now, we'll just do okay. So we just add that. So yeah, stuff that we're not currently using will have to be a factor. We can take care of that off screen though. But basically for painful stabs, right? We'll say, for example, so this will be like, right, and then we'll. So when the book of stabbing hits us, it does the reference comparison to, source, right? So. Oh, so right now it's not even keeping track of the status owner, is it? Yeah, so you'll have to keep track of that. So, do we want this to be enemy or? Well, whatever. So this will be like, it'll be something like this, right? But that's an example of like the refactoring that we're gonna have to do. Wait, let me make sure I'm being consistent in how I'm doing that. Oh yeah, so I'm doing. Yeah, am I keeping track of? Oh, I could just bind the target instead of. Yeah, let's be consistent. Let's not do this. So we'll bind the target. Yeah. So yeah, we don't need this. Wait. No. Yeah, so this is the status owner here, right? So we. How am I doing it for plated armor? Oh, yeah, this is what I did for mode shift. Okay. Okay, yeah, we'll do this. So we'll call it like status owner here, right? But just to be clear. So if source equals status owner, right? So that'll be how we refactor that. Okay. But back to the player. What was I going to do? Yeah, we were going to emit this player damage taken from attack thing, right? Oh yeah, so we have to add the source. Okay, so that's this. Okay. So that'll be for like the painful book of stabbing scrolls case, right? But also for plated armor, you know, there's probably a lot of things, right? I mean, okay. Not that plated armor is in Slay the Spire 2, but, you know, maybe it could be one day. Okay, so that's what we wanted to refactor, right? But now we haven't actually changed any of our, you know, cards or enemy actions to refactor. So maybe we should just test refactor 1 and then, you know, just kind of just for testing to make sure we didn't completely break everything, and then just do the rest of it like offline, right? Like just. So let me see. Do I have a list of? I mean, I have a partial list, I guess, but yeah, maybe I should probably. So yeah, I need to. Where's that signal that I just? Yeah, this. Okay, so I need to. So everything that uses this, like, is gonna need to be refactored. Oh. Yeah, I just I need to double check. Alright, so I'll make a note for myself. So this one's done, right? I'll have to double check it, but yeah. I mean, I'm not planning to use painful stabs for now anyways, just for reference. Okay, but now let's at least refactor our strike and then our basic enemy attack action, right? Just to make sure we didn't completely break everything, right? And then I'll do the rest like myself offline, like, you know, just. Oh man, I didn't even like list the enemy actions, did I? Oh no, I did. Okay, they're here. Okay, that's good. Okay, so let's do basic damage card, and then. So this will be for strike, right? So we're not using this damage effect anymore, right? So let's use our refactor thing. So we want to say target as enemy dot take attack damage, right? And then we. Well, do we want these on separate lines? That's fine. Well, we'll do this for now. And then we need to pass. We need to pass in self, right? Because like, okay, that's what we. So the card and then the modified damage. All right. Maybe we could consider putting that on a separate line because it's a little bit bloated. Like. Yeah, sure. Just keep things clean. A little bit memory inefficient, but you know, it's fine. It's probably worth it, just to make the code cleaner, right? All right, so we do that. And then we also want to refactor the basic enemy attack action, right? Just to make sure that doesn't break everything. So this will be enemy. Basic attack action, right? So when we're just getting hit once, right, we need to. Yeah, we're not gonna do this damage effect thing, right? So instead, we'll do like we'll do the same thing where we have like modified damage equals this, right? And then we'll call the player dot take damage attack damage function. So this will be a player dot take attack damage from self and then modified damage, right? Not self, enemy. Yeah, the enemy that that's doing this attack. That's this right here. And I'm not doing this right. This is dot bind, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, so if this doesn't completely break everything, right, then we call it good, and then I'll refactor the rest of the stuff like just myself, right? Just, done enough examples during this episode. We'll just make sure we didn't completely break everything with this big refactor to support future functionality. Alright, so I should probably keep this line just to see errors here. Okay, so let's take a file holster, sure. Okay, so let's just make sure we can attack something, right, and not have it completely break. Okay, good. So our refactor seems to be successful so far, right? And let's make sure we can get hit by the enemy without, bad stuff happening, right, with our code. Okay, that looks okay, right? Okay. So yeah, we did a refactor, but we still need to refactor all the content to use the new API, right? Like, so we need to get rid of all the calls to, player.takeDamage, right? And then enemy.takeDamage to use the new stuff that we just did. We need to get rid of the damage effect check lethal, the damage effect, right? And the damage effect check amount, right? But yeah. And all the places where the old signals were changed, we need to refactor those, right? But yeah, I can do that myself, like just after this. So for now, yeah, I think we'll call it good. And then next time, like, so we actually start seeing benefits with the additional content, right? That we added support for with this new interface. Like we would do the flame barrier next time, right? But yeah, depending on how long that takes for me to refactor all this stuff, then yeah. I mean, each refactor is pretty fast, so it might not take that long, right? But on Mercury Hourglass, I think I did this during the video, right? Yeah. Maybe I should like come up with a list of everything that was changed also, and just to double check all the signals. So for the new, yeah. So this enemy damage taken, right? Well, we already did that. That was the Lagavulin, right? So yeah, I didn't list it down here though, so maybe I should double check that. So I think I did that during this episode, right? But so let's see. This thing is. So I need to double check this, right? Then, so what? Oh, yeah, I should just make a list of all the signals that changed and weren't just added, and then. So for the added ones, we don't need to do anything because they were just added, right? But enemy damage taken from attack hit, was that one of the changed ones? I think it was. Yeah. Yeah. So we need to check that. So just basically check everywhere that needs to change. These are just added, right? To support future functionality. Then for the player signals, So one of them was in the global event bus, right? This player damage taken from attack. I already listed that here. Okay, and then for the player, this is new. These are new also. Okay, yeah, these signals weren't there before. I don't need to worry about those. What about other things here? Where is this being? So that's just... Oh, I have it in the player character stats. That's fine for now, I guess. If it's not causing issues. Yeah, this will probably take a lot of retesting in general. So this is like and this needs to get rid of. Need to get rid of that anyways. Yeah, so maybe I'll list the functions that need to be removed also down here, so I know to check them. And there was there one that there was like a take damage check lethal, right? Like, yeah, get rid of this too. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I've got some refactoring to do, right? All these scripts that, so need to not use this old interface with a lot of problems, and then they need to use the new way we're doing it. But yeah, I'll take care of that, and then we'll, yeah, move on from there once I've refactored all this. I mean, it looks like a big list, but each one of these refactors doesn't take a very long time, right? Yeah. So I do need to check this. Yeah, and then this just, and then next time I come back, which will be after I've refactored all this, we'll do the flame barrier. So that way we'll start seeing benefits from this this new interface, I guess. Yeah, until next time.